What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Random Redshirt Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Zach, and with me, as always, is the other host, Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hey, Zach. Great to be here again. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Mark, Erica, thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be awesome. We are excited to talk with you. We're very excited to meet you in person, too. So it's going to be wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you for having us. We're looking forward to seeing you guys in, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. So for those of you watching and or listening, we have Mark Cartier and Erica LaRose with us, and they are both from the Shuttlepod Show, which is an amazing podcast. If you guys have not seen it before, it's fantastic. Erica's one of the hosts, along with Connor Trinneer and Dominic Keating from Star Trek Enterprise, and Mark is one of the producers. And we definitely recommend you guys go check it out. If you haven't seen it yet, it's fantastic. They have some absolutely incredible guests and dive into quite a lot of stuff, not just Star Trek. They talk about a lot of great things with their guests' careers. So starting both with you guys, I kind of want to start from the very beginning. How did you guys get involved in the TV and film industry?
Well, I didn't get to say thanks for having us, so thank you. Happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being on with us.
Go ahead. You go first if you want, Mark.
Well, I think first we want to point out that you mentioned the Shuttlepod Show. Everything behind us here is the Shuttlepod Show. It's all of our. It's a huge amount of our gear, and we're moving studios currently. We've been in the Matrix Theater because they've been amazing to host us for a while. And we're moving into a new space, and obviously we've got this show coming up in the next 2 weeks. So our home has kind of become a storage facility for the show, which that is why I got into the film and television business, because I really wanted my home to be a storage facility for a Star Trek talk show. No, I got into the business because my grandfather, when I was a kid, my grandfather would play the War of the Worlds broadcast on the radio, the Orson Welles Mercury Theater, the original broadcast. And I got fascinated by that. When I realized what one voice with a large enough audience was capable of achieving, it really was inspiring. And then, I was fascinated by Star Trek and storytelling, and moved to LA, and I've been in this business my whole life. I've actually never really had a different career, so I don't know anything else.
All right. Well, what about you, Erica?
Bit different than Mark. I did not come to LA to have a storage facility.
That wasn't your dream? I thought we were on the same page.
So I grew up dancing, modeling, playing the piano. I always wanted to act, and I was actually quite terrified of it for some reason. I was really close to getting into. Did some plays in like elementary school, like everyone else, right? But was really close to joining the drama club in high school. Didn't do it, and then in college, my mom introduced me to a director because she knew it was my dream. And that was my first acting role, and I was in a feature film called Creepy Crawly in Connecticut. And after college, I moved to LA and went and studied at Playhouse West, which is a really great acting school here in Los Angeles.
It's very famous.
Yeah, and that's led to some roles in the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2, Due Date, Flight Plan, and The Last Airbender.
Those were all the early years of extra work.
Oh, I haven't heard too much about this. So now I'm
after all the films later after that, like the independent films, or when I had my real roles, and and all the TV is not. All my TV credits are roles I was able to dig into and all that good stuff.
When we first met, which was years ago, years and years ago, we're on the decade side of years now.
That's weird.
She was like, I'm producing a movie, because she lived in New York and I lived in LA, and she's like, I just met you. We just met. I'm producing a movie, and I have this question and this question. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you meet a lot of people in this business, and there's a lot of sort of, I'm an actor, I'm actress, I'm a director, I'm a writer, whatever it is people are. And that's really all you ever hear about it. But she was actively getting things done, and that was really awesome. That's the kind of thing that really, because I don't know. I feel really antsy if I'm not trying to get something done. So people who are getting things done are always really like, it's exciting to know those kinds of people and talk to those kinds of people.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm all about like taking control of what you can, and instead of sitting around and
Waiting,
and that became a big thing once like smartphones came out and everyone was YouTube and making their own content, and casting directors and workshops and acting teachers were like, go make your own stuff if you can't get a gig.
Yeah,
it was just everyone was saying just go make your own content. So
is that how the Shuttlepod show kind of came into origin? Like how did that come?
Shuttlepod show happened because I'm really good friends with Connor Trinneer, and I met Connor back in like 2001, 2002. My first job out of college was at Paramount Pictures, and I worked at Paramount for a long time. I worked for David Foster and for like all of these. My first project over there was called Homeland Security, which was a pilot for a TV show produced by Karen McCluggage, who at the time was the chairman of Paramount Television. And he had been the chairman of Paramount Television, had just created UPN, and was transitioning into a producing deal. He was stepping down from, or transitioning out of his chairmanship role. And he saw a short film of mine, a student film of mine that played at the Sundance Film Festival. And he offered me a job, and I took it, and I was like, the 21-year-old kid running around. And then when my job became permanent, the first project I was on was called The Core. And
I've seen it.
Yes.
With Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank, yeah.
Yes.
And Tucci and Delroy Lindo and
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, Earth Has a Deadline.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's a fantastic movie.
I'm from Washington State originally, so Hilary Swank is from Bellingham, which is like 20 minutes from where I grew up. So that's kind of cool.
I really like her.
Yeah, Hilary Swank's fantastic. She's in a new series. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's on like network television called Alaska Daily, where she's a reporter for the Alaska paper. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
All right.
Yeah, if you haven't got a chance to watch it, I'd recommend it.
I thought it was going to be like some crap, serious Northern Exposure reboot, but it was more like Fargo.
Yeah,
I can see that. I saw the visuals.
The promos on the Apple TV.
It looked Fargo-ish.
It's good. Yeah.
Huh? What were we talking about?
What were we all talking about?
Yeah. Just now, what were we talking about?
Oh, yeah. Well, so your first big project was The Core.
Oh, Shuttlepod Show.
Yeah, and we're talking about Shuttlepod Show. Yeah.
My first office was like Bungalow 25, and it was there's now a gas station there for the lot on the Paramount lot, but it used to be a bunch of these bungalows, and my window was the back of one of the Star Trek stages had like a little fake park area with picnic tables and grass and a bunch of plants and things. And Scott Bakula used to come out in his uniform and take his phone calls, his like giant cell phone calls, right under my window. And I was like, oh, Star Trek, oh my God. Yeah, and I was dating a girl at the time who was friends with the girl that Connor was dating and married. So anyway, fast forward to the start of the pandemic. Connor and I were commiserating with some whiskey, and the whiskey was like, you guys need to do a podcast. So we did. And we immediately, when we were talking about the format and like what other podcasts are successful out there, like the Delta Flyers and the Seventh Rule, and what are these other, and obviously we were not yet aware of the Random Red Shirt podcast. But when we were considering what format we wanted to utilize, we started talking about sort of buddies sitting around a campfire just talking and like sharing the interesting stories from the awesome adventure that had happened 20 years ago. You know, and I was the huge Star Trek fan, and I had seen all of it, so that I was able to talk fairly knowledgeably about all of Star Trekdom. And you know, Connor was a Star Trek star, and would be able to talk about that. And and then we started talking about Dominic,
Ah,
how they were such good friends, and like his voice is uniquely juxtaposition to Connor's. So would that be an interesting format? And we thought it was, and then it was like, well, you know, suddenly it's a bunch of dudes in a room.
yeah.
Like, that's gonna get weird. And you know,
I don't know what
Erica,
that means.
but being nice. Every time she walks into the room when it's just a bunch of us dudes, she's always like, "This isn't weird. This is very normal." It became very obvious very quickly that we needed somebody who could lighten the mood, someone who would keep us all sort of on our toes. And Erica was, you know, we're all friends. Erica and I worked with Connor on a movie a number of years ago, and we were all close friends. And Erica is one of those people who can talk to anybody about anything, anywhere. And she's genuinely like interested in people and interesting herself. And it was like, let's
Stop.
Stop telling me I'm beautiful. And
Thank you. I mean,
so Erica, when were you a Star Trek fan before you started doing Shuttlepod Show, or have you become a fan because of it?
no, I've become a fan because of it. And at first I felt honestly a bit weird about that, and kind of like
like a tourist.
Yeah, like an outsider. And then I was like, well, I should just change my perspective, and you helped me do that and realize that it's actually kind of interesting to see it through a different lens, because you know, you've been obsessed with it forever.
Yeah.
Since you came out of the womb. And you know, Connor and Dominic have been on the show, obviously, and so all our guests have, obviously. And so it was really great to kind of come in with fresh eyes. And
we thought it was important that there was as many unique perspectives into the conversation as we could get our hands on. Anyone on camera or anyone in the room participating in the conversation of our show, having having as many Venn diagrams covering it from every angle as possible, we thought was good. And the thing about just the same that Erica's energy was, it brought a feminine energy, a woman's point of view. You brought like Erica really quickly kind of became the eyes and ears of the audience, and we thought that her learning about Star Trek through the experience was a good thing, because we knew that there's only so many diehard Star Trek fans out there, and for our show to succeed the way we wanted to succeed, we had to kind of grow beyond that core audience and sort of, less dedicated Star Trek fans and spill over into just generic sci-fi fans, or science fans in general. We're looking to, for example, we're looking to start interviewing NASA, like rocket scientists, NASA people, SpaceX, Blue Origin people, scientists, professors. And her learning about Star Trek was great. Also, her reactions on camera sort of allowed the audience to their own reaction if it was different from Dominic, Connor, or myself. Dominic, Connor, and I tend to, be able to read each other's minds, and her being in the room really helps people gauge their own reaction, understand that their own reaction is okay.
It's okay. So
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I didn't see it that way until you told me that, which is kind of really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Erica, you definitely balance it out quite a bit. I think, you get the different viewpoints, but I like that from an Erica's perspective, very soft spoken, and like she has a different view on things. And so it gives it a good balance, which I really enjoy.
Thank you.
And you get the fresh perspective. You don't have the folks that have seen the scenes and thought about it for 10 years
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You get the completely new perspective, which is important for everyone to kind of hear.
Well, and one of the things that I've really grown to love about her is that she is genuinely interested in people. When I was saying earlier that she could talk to anyone anywhere, she makes friends with people at the airport. Like, you live in Santa Barbara. She like, oh, I met this amazing woman who lives in Santa Barbara. She's invited us to her castle on the ocean. And it's like, where? She's like, oh, I was in Detroit for a layover. Let's go to Santa Barbara. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I did. I met her on a plane.
But one of the things that I love about her presence on the show is Connor and Dominic and I get so immediately engrossed in like, what was your Star Trek audition like? Like, how did you end up becoming Worf or whomever on the show? And she always remembers like, wait a minute, where were you born? Who are your parents? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Why did you like acting? And as an actress herself, like from a different perspective than someone who became hugely famous because they were on Enterprise or on a Star Trek show, she's also got insight and questions about their early career that none of us would think to ask. So that's helpful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm still kind of navigating what questions everyone's different. People are comfortable answering, right? It's like someone who's been on TV for 10 years on a popular show. Do they want to talk about their technique?
Our first guest was John Billingsley, and when he sat down and we were getting ready to roll the cameras for the very first time to shoot our very first episode, he was like, I'm going to answer your first 4 questions. 3.5 hours, never, and twice. Like, okay. So they get asked the same because they're Star Trek actors and they go all the conventions. All these amazing Star Trek fans come and they, I think instinctually a lot of us have the same questions. How long was you sitting in the makeup chair? How many different aliens did you play? How many, what was your favorite episode? And they're all like, it all blurred together because they were 16-hour days for 5 years straight. Like, so it's
I think you'll see in tomorrow's episode, I think I was able to ask, I don't know if it will be in the cut, Tim, some questions about like kind of lit him up a bit about some of his work outside of Star Trek.
He's got a band, right? I think.
He's got a band. He's very popular in the Star Trek community for his band. Also he's very famous for his Spaceballs quote, we ain't found shit. When they're combing the desert and Spaceballs. So
that was him who said that.
Of all the fan questions we collected for that episode, and we're collecting hundreds and hundreds of fan questions for every episode now. Like that was by far the most popular question. Variations on that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that he was a part of Spaceballs. So that's really cool.
He was the we ain't found shit guy.
That's awesome. I never knew that. I'll have to go back and rewatch that scene. I did see you guys posted on Instagram that scene of them combing the desert, so that makes sense now. It was really random. I was like, why are they putting this scene from Spaceballs? And now I know exactly why they put that scene from Spaceballs on there.
That's awesome. I like kind of saw it like in a daze. When did you guys post that?
I don't know. Yesterday or today.
Yeah, whatever. I woke up and I was like, what's happening? And it's just the word shit. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh yeah, Tim.
That's right. Tim was in.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I want to go back really quick because Mark, I'm very curious about this. So I was looking up some info, and when we had chatted, you'd mentioned you had produced a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. The movie Welcome to the Jungle.
Welcome to the Jungle in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just sharing a couple minutes about your experiences making that. I'll be honest with you. I've seen a ton of Jean-Claude movies. I have not seen that one, but I wouldn't watch a trailer and would die laughing. So now I've got to go watch it. So I'm curious to hear some about making that movie.
I had my preconceptions about. So you're the Jean-Claude Van Damme fan, right? We talked. I
am. Yep.
Yes. When we first met over the phone, you were like, "I'm a huge Jean-Claude Van Damme fan." I was like, "Oh, funny. I produced a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie."
Yeah.
He. Whatever preconceptions I had about him, I've been in this business now for 24, 25 years. So everything about him like got washed away and turned into awesome sauce because when we said, can you grow like a ridiculous mustache? He started sending us pictures of how we like, how is it like he had the most amazing sense of humor and about what we were asking him to do, and didn't balk at the things the script was asking for, the director was asking for, the producers were asking for. He was remarkably easy to work with, and that was a really fun experience.
That's great.
And the mustache. Yeah. That was amazing. It made me really happy.
Yeah. He's got a very good reputation for being really good with his fans, and so it's really cool when you hear stories of people working with him that's also the case, on set too.
Yeah, I was afraid that he'd be hard to work with, but he was, everyone, whether they were in the UK or in Puerto Rico or in Los Angeles, it was easy.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear.
You made Zach's day, Mark, with that.
Oh, good.
That story.
You did. That definitely made my day. Definitely
Your
made my day.
hero is awesome.
Good to know.
That is good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you guys have been doing the podcast, Shuttlepod Show, can you think of some specific highlights or some of your favorite moments up to this point of doing the podcast? Maybe it's either a guest or a specific moment, producing and putting the episodes together. Anything in particular that stands out?
Nobody's asked me that yet. That's a really nice
Ooh,
question.
nice.
Have they asked you?
He's the you of the red shirt, random red shirt podcast.
Question. Oh my gosh, God. I don't know why shooting in Connor's house felt in general so memorable.
It was very memorable to shoot in Connor's house.
Between the cats and
Yeah.
we had some
Julianne Christie, John Fleck,
I know.
David Livingston, all shot in his house.
Those were 3 great guests. So like Connor's house they're all great. So it's really hard.
And that was the
like,
height of our whiskey sponsorship. It was at the very beginning of our show. So we were a little sauced at the time.
There was something like I think just intimate about being at Connor's house that made the whole thing feel like
I really agree. Yeah, it felt like we were doing something.
And now we haven't shot. We've done some Q&As at Dominic, but it wasn't the same.
We shot some promos at Dominic.
Yeah, it was all very
informal and quick.
Yeah. So
when we went to shoot at Connor's house, we were in his home. Sitting on his sofa. Our guests were in his home, and he was Connor. I don't know if you guys have spoken with Connor before or met him or anything.
Yep.
He is one of the most welcoming, warm people I have ever known. He's very generous. He is very honest and giving and open and forthright. And he is a sincere, genuine human being. And, we talk a lot about on our show about how people get cast into the roles when they walk in the room. Like when you sit down and talk with Michael Dorn, it's like, that's why you were Worf. Or when you talk with, Denise Crosby, that's why you were Tasha Yar. When you talk to Nana Visitor, it's like, oh, Jesus, no wonder. Like all of these actors, John Billingsley, Gary Graham, everybody, they all as an actor, when you walk in the room, the feeling that casting directors and producers and directors get, the way the room changes when anyone walks in the room, it's like, that's what they're looking for, that sort of intangible. And Connor, the reason he's Trip is because when he walks in the room, everyone just wants to like hug him and bare their soul.
Yeah.
Don't tell Connor this, but Trip's my favorite character from Enterprise.
Oh, don't tell me that. I'll forever be the less handsome of the male partnership.
That's wonderful to hear about him, though. That's absolutely fantastic, and kind of being able to be there and do the show in a more intimate setting is special.
He really opened his home to us. And when we moved in there, it wasn't just we threw up a couple of cameras, shot our interview, and left. We moved in there with a crew and a lot of gear, a lot of lights. We're putting up cross beams across his dining room ceiling to hang lights from, and like throwing up lights and artwork. And we moved all of his he collects art and all this shit, and like we were pulling all his lifelong art collection down and throwing up our Star Trek talk show stuff. And he was incredibly gracious and taking care of everyone.
I never really thought about how unique that experience was in comparison to all the other places we shot. It was like it was, you got me thinking about it. So
we're just watching the Tim Russ episode today because it's going live tomorrow morning, and
looking forward to watching that.
Like, because we moved into a more professional soundstage space. We went from our conference room at our office into Connor's house, then into a theater, then into the theater's sort of attic area.
Yeah.
And it got really cozy with the sofas, and now moving into more of a professional space where we can control the environment a little more. Did we just take a step back? Is it colder now? Is it less inviting? And all of us were sort of thinking like, oh, I wish we could just go shoot at Connor's again. It felt like we were, like in his dining room, because we were.
You know what I think is like, this is up to everyone, not just me, but if a guest is willing to have us at their home, then we should go.
Like Rick Berman had us at his home. And,
and Berman's home was that same kind of, for me, it was more like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, this is, I know Connor personally, but that was interesting. And
you've been to Connor's house a lot of times.
And I was like, oh, that's a nice backyard.
We used to have an ongoing pool tournament, and Connor owed me thousands of dollars because he kept losing to me in pool. Connor, and you can talk about this when he's on your show. Connor sort of thinks of himself as this great pool guy, and like
pool shark,
a student of the game. Like, he's got a big pool table. He's got the book, the manual by like the crazy savant who like really wrote the rules and whatever. And he's teaching me how to, all this shit. And then I just kept beating him. and he was and it was like double or nothing. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And the moment he caught up to me, suddenly we don't play pool anymore. Yeah. So we used to go play pool over there and have a cocktail and talk about life and play pool. And now there's no more pool tournament.
I wonder why.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Why don't you play pool anymore?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, can you think of any other great moments?
No, that was a really good one.
No, that was the one.
Beating Connor at pool and making him owe money. That's great. That's funny.
Yeah, for me, meeting a lot of these guests I've never met before, and as a lifelong fan of Star Trek, I feel a little bit like a kid. Like, the producer in me is like, hand them their paperwork, make them sign it, stay on schedule, don't take their shit. They can find their own parking. Let's get to work. But the fanboy in me is like, so it's every guest that walks in is sort of like, how lucky, what a wonderful job. What, like, our house is a storage unit for the show. I think that's for me, this is of all the work that I've done in my life, of all the jobs that I've had and all the projects I've worked on. This is the one where I feel like a kid who's like, I'll throw that in the trunk of my car. Like I'll stay up all night with doing a macaroni, macaroni art, whatever needs to happen. If we don't have a sign, I'll do it. The whole thing for me is a really magical sort of wonderful experience, and I'm really excited to be doing this job.
That's wonderful. So actually, what you were,
my love, like the person and my great friends, Connor and Dominic, like it's
yeah. So with what you were just saying, with the different guests that you've been having on, and they were from like the variety of series, and you being a fan of Star Trek, Mark and Erica, and then you coming into Star Trek and learning about the guests that you've had and what that you've had so far, and like what you've learned from them, is there like a deeper kind of affinity and connection now that you have with some of the series, the Star Trek series that you haven't had before, that you kind of expanded, like, oh wow, I didn't think of it that way for this particular series, and that gave you deeper appreciation?
Great question.
I think the answer for me is going to be significantly different than her answer. 'Cause, Erica is, and I really envy her for this, sort of fresh to all of the Star Trek. She's been
So fresh and so clean.
so fresh and so clean. There's been a lot of Star Trek in our house for the last year.
Yeah.
It's always on now. You know, there's that saying, "Don't meet your heroes."
Yep.
I have not yet, when it comes to Star Trek, I have not yet found that to be the case. Every once in a while, I'll see a comment online about someone saying, this Star Trek actor, I met them 12 years ago, and I tried to say hi, and they wouldn't even talk to me." And it's like, you know, I've never had that experience. I think, you know, when you are the centerpiece of a convention filled with thousands of people, it kind of numbs you down. And I don't like, I know I've never heard a Star Trek actor complain about fans. Every Star Trek actor I've met or known over the years or gotten to know through the show are all incredibly grateful of the fans and really want to make themselves available for the fans. So anyone who's had a bad experience, I feel like it was just the wrong moment in time, or they didn't, you know. I've been kind of concerned about having a moment like that myself. That hearing these behind the scenes stories and learning about, you know, really seeing the behind the scenes politics sort of gel. I was concerned that that might sort of skew my vision of the show, but I think it's a combination of most of them being really grateful for what Star Trek gave them and that experience, combined with me having been in this business for 24 years. So I know, like, I already know what's going on behind the scenes. I've been really grateful that my view of Star Trek has not been changed by this process. If anything, I feel like I'm more a part of it now.
Yeah, we were having those talks, Chris and I, about that, and I felt like since we've done our podcast and we've had some of these different guests on that we've had, I feel more connected to the franchise than I ever have at any point in my life to now. So it's really great. It made the appreciation, the affinity, kind of the love fest for Star Trek has only gotten deeper since then. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I feel the same way.
Yeah. Now I got to say, I don't know, Erica, if anybody said this to you. So if they haven't, you know, that stinks, but welcome to the Star Trek family. Because you were on the outside looking in, and now you're part of this Star Trek fandom, you know, group, and so it's a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah, a really unique experience that a lot of people don't get to have, and I'm very grateful. And to like kind of go back to your question, Chris, like I think I'm having the opposite experience of what maybe you guys would have meeting Star Trek actors, or you, because it's like I can watch an episode and that I've never watched before and be like, oh, I sat with that person for a few hours and I totally know like so much more than like you know, some people would about them. Even just being around their presence like in person is something unique. You know, it's like, I don't know. Now I'm getting all like artsy fartsy, but like being in a room with someone, you kind of feel their energy, and you know when you feel that and then see how that translates to the screen, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a click. It's like we were talking about earlier. Like you get cast because you are that energy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super jealous because you're getting, and you might be a little bit too, Mark. because you're getting to experience Star Trek for the first time, brand new, fresh. Like if I could erase my whole memory and go back and rewatch it for the first time again, I probably would do that just for the sheer fact of being able to experience it again, because you only get that once.
So can I ask you, how would you re-experience that? Would you watch it from?
Oh, good question.
Would you watch it from the first show to the last, or would you watch it in order?
Chronological order.
Oh, you know what? I'll be honest with you. If I had to redo it all over again, I think I probably would. I think I'd probably start with the original series and kind of watch the shows in order in which they aired on television.
Interesting.
Yeah, that would be that's what I would do too. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We've recruited a guy called Joe Bano to start doing episode reviews, because he's a rather renowned American opera director, theater director, classical music and fine arts and movie reviewer for the LA Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and he'd never seen a frame of Star Trek. And he's incredibly articulate. He's a huge cinemaphile, and the depth of knowledge that he has over the history of, Hollywood and cinema is really quite remarkable. And so we've spent Chris, our other producer, Chris, and longtime friend, and I have been good friends with this guy Joe for 20 years, and finally convinced him in the last couple of months to start watching Star Trek and to write to review his experience of being an adult and have all this worldly experience and have never seen a frame of Star Trek, and to use his immense vocabulary and cognitive ability on trying to articulate what it is about Star Trek that made him like it or not like it now, made him not watch it until now. And sort of try to connect the dots of Star Trek's effect on society over the years. And we were having this conversation about how, if you just watch every episode and every movie in order that it was released, this is going to take 19 years. So why don't we, and we ended up coming up with the solution was to watch the pilot. Well, because the original series had such a pilot crisis at the top of its existence, watched The Cage, then Charlie X, and whatever the first two episodes, and then the second original pilot. Because there's the pilot that aired, there was the episode that aired first. Then there was the episode that was shot with Kirk first.
I watched those.
And then The Cage was the original pilot. So he watched all four of those episodes. And then he watched the pilot for The Next Generation. And then he watched the pilot for Deep Space Nine. And then he watched the pilot for Voyager. And now he's going to watch the pilot for Enterprise. So we're going to put him through the pilots of all the series and then go to important episodes of all the series, and then do the movies at some point as well.
Nice.
And just because I really wanted him. He's what is he, 62?
He's in his 60s from what I know, from what you've told me.
Not that that's old, it's just 19 years. When you're in your 60s, a 20-year long project seems like maybe we should try to.
Unless maybe if he binges it, then he can get it down to 10. Maybe, I don't know.
That's what I was saying, but he was like, "I'm only going to do this on Mondays."
That would take 19 years, then. Yeah, that's right.
But it's such a fascinating experience because him seeing this for the first time and like being so culturally in tune and sophisticated, and like I don't know, the things he reading his reviews and then taping his reviews is really opening my eyes to a conversation that I've never participated in out loud, but has been kind of in the background my whole life about what Star Trek is to people. There's this sort of, a lot of people like Gene Roddenberry's vision, and the future is going to be great. There's no money and no hate and no racism and no blah blah blah. It's all, everything's perfect. But there was also issues in his in, like, you watch the original series and it is like a sexist machine. Like it's really
a product of the 60s.
It's like to watch it now in 2023, there's some cringy shit in there. And like you look at it through the lens of what society is now, you'll never get anywhere. Like,
Right.
I think it's a great case study on where we were and where we're going, and its role in getting us there. So anyway, it's fascinating, and to see it in a fresh perspective by having him be a part of this is really I'm loving every minute of it, and I really hope that when we launch this segment for our show, that the fans, because it's a little bit of criticism of Star Trek, but it's also like he's learning about what it means to everyone who's a fan of it as we go, and I really think it's going to be an awesome conversation.
Yeah,
that sounds great. Yeah,
Funny
and he's very funny.
and entertaining.
He's one of the funniest people.
So it will balance out any criticism.
Yeah, and he's gonna love that I told the world how old he is.
You trying to hide it?
He might.
He looks young.
Yeah, he's got a ponytail.
Yeah.
so these will be these will be video reviews that you'll.
Yes, we're taping.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're taping them, and we haven't quite figured out how it's gonna play out yet. Our current idea is that we're gonna tape his reviews, and then when we're taping our interview shows, that we're gonna play his review back, and then he and us, we're all just gonna sit around and have a conversation about his review. And if he questioned or like,
I didn't know that. That'll be funny.
Oh, it's gonna be great, because he's gonna have to defend himself, and I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, you didn't see episode meh or episode meh or this episode with blah blah blah, and that's a lame assessment.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and Connor and Dominic are gonna have their perspective, and the thing that I love about this is, and I wrote it on my dry erase board, you can't see it because the camera's pointing at us, is that it's where is it? There it is, Star Trek School. That it's kind of, in how awesome it is for Erica's perspective of Star Trek to be so fresh,
right?
And like, naive is the wrong word, but what am I gonna say? It's clean.
Yeah, sure.
It's this conversation with Joe about what Star Trek is, in reviewing what these seminal episodes and movies, and how Star Trek evolved in our landscape in real time, and then also and as the show has gotten older and evolved, that conversation I think is going to lend a really excellent fresh perspective for diehard fans of Star Trek, to have that kind of a conversation with someone who is that sort of brain great and funny.
Yeah.
And and Erica, who's on the learning end of what Star Trek is as well.
Joe and I have very different jobs.
Yeah, and with Connor and Dominic are also kind of learning about what Star Trek is.
They are, which is really interesting to watch.
One of the interesting fan questions or concerns or comments is always like, how do these people not know everything about Star Trek? They were in it, for Christ's sake. And it's like, well, I mean, again, like, when your job is 16 hours a day for years and years and years, learning lines and standing on sound stages with 80 people looking at you, and keeping on schedule, and staying up and traveling and doing promos, and
yeah, it's a job. Yeah,
it's a job. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about all of our guests so far, and what's happened with Connor and Dominic, is that they've realized what they were a part of, and how unique and special it is. Now that they have the hindsight to look back at it, they're like, this is magical. This is something that we've never experienced. Whatever other jobs we've had or shows or movies we've been in over the years, this thing was special. The fans are so uniquely special in this one space in Star Trek. And to look back at it with that perspective of how lucky are we to have been a part of it, it's really like heartwarming to watch that. And again, like, that's why I think it's like a Star Trek school for you know, people like me who are diehard fans, people like Erica who are new to it and just learning it, and like Joe, who's coming from a totally different perspective of being new to it and learning it, and you know, Connor and Dominic who were a part of it and are seeing it from the fans' perspective for the first time.
Yeah,
We really hope that it'll be great.
Yeah, I'm curious. I've always wondered. I never asked the question to any of the Star Trek actors at conventions, or whatever. But if they think about like, okay, I've done these certain projects, right? Other movies and TV shows and stuff, and some of those will probably not be remembered. But with Star Trek, it's a legacy thing, right? Like it's something that if they think about, like, you know, do they realize, hey, this is probably my role on Star Trek is going to outlive me. It's going to continue to go on in generations. And I'm going to be part of this massive legacy that continues to go on, you know, almost 60 years later.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you look at all the greats who have passed away in the last decade, they will live on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will. They absolutely will.
They will. Spock.
Some
Dr.
some
McCoy.
of our guests have been
Scotty.
fans of Star Trek
Uhura.
since they were kids. Some did not watch it at all until they didn't watch it and they got cast. I mean, some actors didn't even watch
some of them are like,
Yeah.
you know, I knew what Star Trek was, but I hadn't seen a
So-
frame of it until I got booked on the show.
So that's always interesting to find out.
And I think some of that's good too. Like
It's
I don't
normal,
think that's bad at all.
No, I think it's really interesting.
Brings a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got like Michael Dorn, who was a huge Star Trek fan growing up.
That was really interesting.
That was fun to talk about. Yeah.
To learn about him.
Yeah. Now he plays. We actually just had an episode we did with the Duras sisters podcast where we talked about Klingons, and Worf was basically, he basically became the center of the episode, and he went from being such a massive Star Trek fan to having one of the most impactful characters in the franchise. I think he was in, I don't know if he was the most or he's one of the top couple most episodes of any Star Trek actor.
188 episodes and 5 movies as Worf or Worf's grandfather.
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And for a guy who was a diehard Star Trek fan before he ever was on the show.
Plus now season 3 of Picard, so that's 3 Star Trek series. 5 movies with 2 different casts. Yeah. And he asked for the role. He asked for the not the role. He asked for the audition. He got his representation to get him an audition. He went after when he heard out when he heard they were casting for a new Star Trek show. He went after a chance to audition for it.
Well, thank goodness he did.
The other auditions, he didn't put himself out there for a minute, right? He was waiting.
Was that him or was that Tim Russ? Either him or Tim Russ heard that they were actually in consideration and opted to not take other auditions because they were waiting to get an answer back from Star Trek.
I thought it was Dorn. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
if it wasn't Dorn, it was Tim Russ.
You might be right. You might be right, but you may be wrong.
That's a cool story.
Usually right.
I tell this story like I'm the kind of person who's like, no, this is the answer. I know it. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about. And then she's like, okay. And she like always turns out to be right.
Yeah. That's cool.
So,
go
ahead, Chris. No, go ahead.
Yeah. He fulfilled his own destiny, which is really kind of beautiful to hear.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, you know, where can people find the podcast? I mean, it's probably a kind of an obvious question, but maybe for people who are new to podcasts, maybe not know where to look.
Yeah, so we actually didn't know what we were going to like about doing this show at the beginning. So we were sort of like, let's just focus on the format. Let's figure out the format that we like the best before we sort of hone in on the best way to make that format available. So we're just going to generically call ourselves a show, and we'll put it on YouTube. And then if we need to hone in on something that's really working, or, you know, change the perspective, the format of the show, our approach to it, how these conversations are going, and then we'll, you know, go from there. So we evolved as a YouTube show, and I think the success that the show has been having has all been driven on YouTube. So you can find us at Shuttlepod Show on YouTube. But we also are available. Every one of our episodes has an audio podcast version. which is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, Deezer, all that stuff. But we encourage you to watch it on YouTube. Plus, we have a growing Patreon family, members who are really a part of our show. Our Patreon members are really participate in keeping the show going and making it successful beyond just providing financially at whatever level they're comfortable with. But they've been volunteering to help us, like with the live event we have coming up, volunteering to help us with things that we aren't necessarily good at, organizing volunteers, creating FAQs. The fan base there's something called the Wash Gang, which is a group of our Patreon members who arose on Discord to take care of our avocado tree, Wash, that's in the background. It was sitting next to Erica in the first handful of episodes of the show.
Yeah.
And the fans were like, what's the name of the plant? What's the name of the plant? So we started a plant name competition, and Wash won.
Yeah.
And the Wash has more fans than any of us do now.
Yeah.
Of course.
There's a group of people on our Discord that are Patreon members who are committed to taking care of Wash. They call themselves the Wash Gang. They have T-shirts that they sell and wear. They've created magnets, and they're amazing.
Wash, right?
Yeah.
The tree?
Yeah.
Oh, Wash from
No, I mean the tree.
Oh, okay.
You've seen the plant.
Yes. Yep.
Nice.
If not, I was gonna bring him so
in.
you could meet him.
It's like Shuttlepod Show, a version of Wilson.
Yes.
How long have you two been doing the show?
Go ahead.
You guys, how long have
Yeah.
you been doing your show?
Yeah, it has been over a year that we have been doing it.
Nice.
Yeah, we started in when was it? I think we started talking about it like March, April of 21.
Or maybe yeah. I mean, it did originate during the pandemic, right? Where where we were in different places. At one point, Zach was in Alaska, and then Zach moved from Alaska to California. But when he moved, we started talking, and we started talking about all of the things that we like in science fiction. And then that was great, very great conversations. And then we had the idea, like, well, why don't we start having this as a podcast and record our conversations? And we really had no idea where that was going to go. We just thought, well, maybe it'll just be a couple of our friends or our wives that kind of listen.
5 people to listen to us.
How cool.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun doing the podcast. We knew nothing about podcasts before we did this either, like nothing. I mean, I think I only listened to 1 or 2. In fact, actually, one of the reasons that gave us the idea of doing the podcast was the Delta Flyers and the Shuttlepod Show.
Oh,
so you guys were an inspiration.
Oh, how cool is that?
That's
oh,
makes me emotional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah. But you mentioned your event that is coming up. Is this the first? Is it the first event like this that you've had? Is this so it's coming up soon, right? Yeah.
Shuttlepod Show is the first podcast, YouTube. We have no idea what we're doing. We're just like sheer willing our way into trying to make this a success. We feel very grateful for the dedicated fan base that we've grown, and the community that has grown up around us to support us, and it's so grateful. Like it makes staying up 16 hours a day trying to make this thing work super worth it. The learning how to get that right, we're still learning how to do it, but like we just felt like we needed to do something live, get a bunch of our fans an opportunity to come and like really participate, like be in the room and ask their questions right there, and have us So there's a convention circuit around Star Trek where thousands of
Yep.
people go to giant convention halls and they buy, these passes and they wait in line and they like go through this whole sort of choreographed giant crowd management rigmarole. And that's really great. One of the things that I've learned about the community, because I never really, as a Star Trek fan my whole life, I never participated in the fandom. I never really went to conventions. I never did any of that. But learning about what the fans do and want while doing this show, it was like, well, it's easy, like, to do what the fans want. The fans just want to like come and have the opportunity to like have a conversation and like have a beer or a glass of champagne with their favorite Star Trek actor, ask them a couple personal questions, and share their gratitude for what their character or what their series or movie did for them. So many Star Trek fans have like a real life Star Trek saved me, or like Star Trek, was the how I got through my shitty teenage years in my growing up or whatever. Or like when my divorce happened, I stayed up all night and cried and watched Star Trek or whatever. Like there's something about Star Trek that really inspires people when they're having a rough patch, and it's a common theme in the fandom. And learning about the community, learning how to make the show, made us realize that we needed to learn how to do a live show to get our fans more intimately involved in what it is we're doing, to really feel like we're a family, that we're all kind of in this together. These interviews are great and we can ask all the questions that we want to ask, but it's no bueno unless fans of the show are learning things that they really want to learn, that they really want to know. They feel like they're getting to know these actors as well, or these, filmmakers or whomever. And so we thought, well, we should do like an intimate live show, like only sell 130 passes. That's it. Not 5,000. Not rent out a giant convention hall, but just get a theater that'll fit 120 people and spend a weekend where we can all kind of just have an elongated social hour mixer with some entertainment, Star Trek people entertainment. So this February 10th, 11th, 12th, we're having Trucks and Trekkers, the Shuttlepod Show, live in Los Angeles. We're doing a staged table read of The Odd Couple, Neil Simon's amazing play, starring Connor and Dominic as Oscar and Felix, and then
it's gonna be so good.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be so funny too. Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
We're gonna have Andrew Robinson and Jeffrey Combs and Nanal Visitor and Walter Koenig and Vaughn Armstrong and John Billingsley's wife, Bonnie Friederici, are going to be playing those roles. And then we're going to have an after party. We're all going to play Star Trek trivia. We're going to do cosplay. We're going to have karaoke. And then the next day we're going to come back. We're going to do, amongst a number of other activities, we're going to do a table read of the Shuttlepod 1 episode, the Star Trek Enterprise episode that Connor and Dominic became close friends in. Their characters it's one of my favorite episodes in all of Star Trek, all of it.
I was
really
there
good.
in that episode.
That was the first thing we ever recorded.
For our first episode, if you
Yeah.
will. I started tearing up, and I was just learning about Star Trek, but their the dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah.
And how, I don't know, just like, I was like, oh my God.
It was Connor and Dominic and Gary Graham sitting around our dining room table.
Yeah.
And Aslan was there and Chris was there, and
it was very small.
It was very intimate, and it affected me in a way that I didn't expect.
Anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt the schedule. Go on.
Being in the room when great actors are performing, or characters that you have admired your whole life come alive in the room with you, it's like, it's one thing to see Connor every day and be his friend. It's another thing when he turns Trip on. It's like, whoa, like I'm in the fucking room with Trip.
Yeah.
And Dominic, when he turns into Reed, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so
It was
like
very special.
sharing that experience with people in this intimate setting. So we're really excited to do that episode again, to do that reading again
On Saturday.
on Saturday, and we're going to be doing it, live and on stage, with a bunch of Star Trek actors playing. We're gonna have Vaughn Armstrong play Archer. Nana Visitor is going to play T'Pol. Obviously, we have Connor and Dominic. John Billingsley was going to be playing Dr. Phlox, but he now has to go across the country for a movie. So we have Andrew Robinson playing Dr. Phlox.
Nice.
It's gonna be great. Sirach Lofton, Anthony Montgomery has a conflict, so we're working that out. But Sirach Lofton, if Anthony's not there, is going to be reading, and then Erica is going to be reading for Hoshi.
Nice.
Yeah. And then they're all going to stick around, because then once we're done with that table read, which I think is the Odd Couple is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I think the table read of Shuttlepod 1 is going to bring the house down.
Yeah.
To be in an intimate theater space like that, where we're right on top of that table watching this performance live in the room, like Star Trek meets live theater, like, oh God.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, and then we're gonna clear the house and have something called tamales in the park. We're gonna have Oaxacan tamales and a cocktail mixer, and then hopefully we can get Greg Henry to play some blues piano out there. While
He's so good.
he's so good.
I don't know if you saw him a bit on. We had him on.
On, yeah.
On the show itself, we had a little.
Yeah, we caught him on the
yeah.
phone playing the piano in the lobby of the theater. Anyway, then Vaughn Armstrong and Jeffrey Combs are gonna do a music set, like 30-40 minutes, and then they're gonna put their instruments down, and we're gonna have a live Shuttlepod Show episode on stage in front of everyone, with a whole slate of all of the names that we've read off and more. We're gonna have a whole stage covered in awesome Star Trek actors. And it's going to be an awesome experience, and we're going to talk about some interesting things, and it'll probably devolve into some amazing Q&A with the live audience. It'll be 2 hours of just chucking it up with anyone who's there, and then we're going to have a happy hour, and everyone's going to come and do a toast, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's going to be great. I will say, we can't wait to be there. It's going to be awesome.
We're excited to have
really
you.
looking forward. Yeah, we're really looking forward to being there. For those of you listening, you don't know, the Random Redshirt podcast will be at the event, and we are super excited to be there. Meet you guys in person, which will be great, obviously, and sharing all these events. It's going to be an absolute blast.
Well, we're looking forward to helping you guys out. Like, whatever you need, we want to try to get you as many interviews lined up as we can. We would just, whatever equipment help you need. We have a lot of equipment, obviously, and we'd like to sort of set the precedence that we would like to invite awesome Star Trek shows and podcasts that we are fans of to come and participate in our live events, and just like share the experience that we're pursuing ourselves.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate all the work you guys are putting in this, because I know it's going to be a great time. I mean, I've done the convention stuff. That's fun, but this is going to be a whole nother experience. And it's a great excuse for Chris and I to connect in person again, for a while. So
Yeah.
We're gonna have a reunion. We were talking
exactly. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I wanted to ask. Oh,
they
go ahead.
hadn't seen each other in person in like what, 2 years or something?
Yeah,
almost 2 years.
Oh,
You guys are gonna hug in front of us.
We are.
It's
We
going to be
are.
great. I wanted to ask you
Bring
guys.
people together.
It's right. I wanted to ask you guys now, Eric, I know you're a little bit new to Star Trek, but you've been watching a ton of Star Trek, it sounds like, over the last year. So you may have an answer for this, or maybe not. Maybe you haven't decided yet. But what is each of your guys' favorite Star Trek series?
Okay. Oh,
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I think it's weird. Like I feel like I have to say Enterprise because and it's not because of Connor and Dominic. It's
Because
just
I'm going to
like,
see Connor and Dominic in the morning. So
Yeah.
it's just that I watched so much of it and I connected to Star Trek
because of it.
through
Yeah.
that
was your
show.
entry point. Yeah.
Enterprise was the first show you watched then?
Yeah, so everything
Okay.
around that, I was like, I guess this is cool too. But it was like, there's something about
Yeah, your first experience.
Yeah, there was something about. I mean, they're all great, right? I don't know. I've been enjoying Deep Space Nine a lot, and the Next Generation.
Yeah.
So yeah, those three. But yeah, I don't know. Enterprise is. I guess that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Right now.
There's nothing wrong with that. Enterprise.
Yeah.
Enterprise is the most grossly underrated series in the entire franchise.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
The Enterprise that's really good is really good.
Yes.
Yeah, Enterprise is very underrated, and it was a victim of the years that it broadcast. Television was changing so extremely that it was a victim of that.
Yeah.
And Paramount was experimenting with a new network format with UPN, and that was a dumpster fire.
It's been really interesting to watch Picard. I've been really kind of enjoying it because
we're going to the season 3 premiere at the Chinese Theater on the day before our live event starts.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We're trying to get caught up.
I've been really enjoying it, so it's it feels a little different. I don't know. I haven't really talked about it with you yet.
Yes.
No,
dramatic. You're not wrong, Erica. It's definitely different. Yep.
Cinematography feels different, but I like it. It's cool. Yeah, but anyways.
It's a grown-up, more serious take on Star Trek.
Your turn.
So my point of entry was the original series and the Next Generation, because when I was a kid, the Next Generation would play, and then 2 episodes of the original series would play before the network turned off for the night. And so Kirk did it first. Like, I am a Captain Kirk fan, hardcore. And the original series is terrible and great. But some of it is, a lot of those original series episodes, when you go back and watch them now, it's like, oh, these 3 episodes in a row are basically the same episode. It's the same. There's 3 variations of an original series episode. It's like, you go to a planet and it's either exactly like Earth, acknowledge is statistically awkward, and something Earth-like is happening, or they get there and there's some computer running the show and everyone's like a slave to the computer. I'm glad that Star Trek has evolved. The original series has my admiration and love because it started it all, and Kirk is my favorite character in all of storytelling history.
I did not know that.
Kirk, McCoy, Spock, the triad of Kirk, McCoy, and Spock, I will forever like. There's reasons that was so awesome. It worked so well.
I was like you, Mark. When I was a kid growing up, it was TNG with TOS reruns and things like that. So I started watching a little bit of that. My parents would have it on the background. But I fell in love with DS9, and
and that's exactly what I was gonna say. The Next Generation and everything else, like, I've seen all of it. I don't know how many times. But the show that I keep going, like, when I want to go to bed, the show that I put on is Deep Space Nine. Like, Deep Space Nine has become, I think, my favorite of all the series. For whatever reason, it's
evolving.
It's a crossroads in the evolution of what Star Trek is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so vastly different from what came before it, and it went against the grain of Gene Roddenberry's everything's great in the future, and DS9's like, nope, it's not. We're still dealing with stuff, so
still gonna have to deal with stuff.
I can relate to that in real life. So
Chris, what about you?
For me, my favorite series. My question, it is. I do love them all, but it has been the Next Generation that has been my favorite. So I do really like that one. I like the kind of expansion and world building that it did, but for the most part, I really liked and appreciate now that I'm older, the dilemmas that they were in, and the cerebral thinking that Captain Picard and the thought he had to put into to his decisions. So now
Yeah.
I when I look at it right now, right, I appreciated it then when I saw it, but I see it now, and it affects me on a very, very much deeper level. Like now that I've experienced more life, and I can go, oh,
Yeah.
that's the kind of decision that you have to make. So that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kirk was the cowboy. Picard was not the pragmatist, but he was always struggling with what's the right answer, what's the right thing to do in this situation.
Very principle centered. Yeah.
Very principled. Yeah, very, very,
Yeah.
very, very principled.
And then you had Cisco that sells out the Romulans to get him into the war. I mean, you know.
Cisco went back a little bit to cowboyism.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is fun, you know.
Yeah.
So cool how shows or movies can affect you differently later, like after not watching them for so long. And yeah, that's happened to me a few times, and I'm like, whoa.
Well, it shows how great Star Trek is, right? Because as you age and as you get to different periods in time in your life, you may have watched the same episodes 100 times each, and then you watch it that 101st time when you're, you know, years older, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice this, or this is affecting me in a different way than it did before. And so Star Trek's like, you know, like Cousin Eddie said, the gift that keeps on giving the whole year, you know.
Oh,
So
that's a great way of putting it.
yeah.
And you know it's good when it can, you know, affect you differently years later. You know there's something special
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. We did.
Forgive me for a moment. Dominic is texting me, and I gotta respond, or he'll feel alone.
No worries. I was just gonna say, you know, Chris, we did a couple of what we called great nerd debates in season 1 of our podcast. We did the great nerd debate, Star Trek versus Star Wars, and then we did one more nerd debate, Chris, that I do believe we should mention.
Yeah, this is gonna make our day.
This is gonna make our day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a great meme. I saw a really great meme the other day. It was Star Wars fans versus Star Trek fans, and Star Wars fan was like some screaming, crying, drunk person who's like dramatically pointing at someone, and the Star Trek fan was like a cat just glaring over a table with a glass of wine. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the joke was in the meme, but
I like it. It makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
So this question is kind of a fun question, and not necessarily even a Star Trek one either, but just since we're all, you know, fans of movies, and this is just like what we love, like what we feel our best decade of movies are. So
God,
the 80s, so we had the 80s versus the 90s. What is our favorite decade of movies? You know, the 80s had these incredible movies like Empire Strikes Back, you know,
Star
Back
Trek
to the
2,
Future.
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Those-
90s had, you know,
Jurassic Park.
yes.
Troopers, Star
Yes.
Trek 6, Star Trek
Yes.
First Contact. Yeah.
Don't forget your blockbuster movie, Chris, in the 90s.
Come on, man.
What is
Well, I was just bringing it. So Zach always teases me because I did bring in the conversation the Titanic that was in the 90s.
You love Titanic.
I love Titanic.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
Very good. Very,
How
thank
about
you.
Titanic exhibit right now? I want to know, but, did you see the billboard?
I don't read billboards.
You know, I mean,
That'd be a lot of fun.
I'm looking it up right now.
yeah.
I guess we're going to the Titanic exhibit, so thank you, bro.
Thank you for reminding me because you were busy on the phone or something. I was like, oh, we're going to that.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. There's a lot that went into making that Titanic movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the no wrong answer. Although I think if you ask Zach, there's a wrong answer, but no wrong answer. What is your
You're not wrong, Chris, in this case.
What is our decade?
yeah? What is the one?
Oh, God. Okay. That's really hard because of the movies that we named specifically. Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Star Trek 2, Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
There's so, and then obviously, you know, there's so many good movies there. But the movies that I that I was excited to see, that I like waited in line to go buy a movie ticket. Like even the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
99.
waiting in line for 3 days and like the spring of 98 or 99, whatever that was.
Yeah.
In a tent in a parking lot in Minneapolis, like uh the Jurassic Park, Star Trek 6, Starship Troopers. I think I have to say the 90s.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
like Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, those two alone, the Indiana Jones movies,
Yes.
amazing. But
Yeah.
the experience of being old enough to get my ass to a movie theater and pay for a ticket and like watch it and go back and watch, like Star Trek 6, I saw probably 60 times in the movie theater.
Oh my
I've
gosh.
never seen a movie so many times. It's so far and away. I've seen several movies a couple of times in the movie theater. I saw Star Trek 6 dozens and dozens of times. I would go by myself. I would go with friends. I would go when I was bored. That movie, I would still go see it in a movie theater today.
Yeah.
I would too. Yeah, I saw when they released Star Trek 2 in the theaters recently. Did a re-release, so I went and I saw that. So that was yeah.
I had the chance to work with Nicholas Meyer on a couple of projects. One of my first mentor in Los Angeles as a producer mentor was a guy called David Foster, and he produced a lot of great movies like The Thing with John Carpenter and Short Circuit movies and like blah blah blah. And we had a lot of projects with Nick Meyer, and I was such a Star Trek fan. I was like, and so I had this amazing opportunity to like sit in a small private theater and watch Star Trek 2 with a handful of diehard Star Trek fans, and Nick just sat there for hours talking to us about the movie afterwards. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I was there to help out because, I was working for David, and he and David were friends and we had projects together, but that was one of the best fan experiences I've ever had.
Nice.
Star Trek 2 is, and I've made her watch it. I'm like, no, you fell asleep. We have to start at the beginning.
Start all over again.
All the way through again.
Right. So Erica, what would be, if you had to choose between the 80s and the 90s, what decade would you choose for the greatest movies of all time, or greatest decade for movies, I should say?
Definitely the 90s. I love the 90s. But for like, different reasons. Like I have chick flicks, like
Ghostbusters,
Clueless, Titanic, Cruel Intentions.
Yeah.
All these
Cruel Intentions.
Yeah.
I know so much more about you believe what makes sense all of a sudden.
Chick flicks.
Man. So in the debate,
chick flicks these days. I don't know if that's a bad
thing. They're
whatever. Flicks. I liked my 90s flicks.
Yeah. Well, in our debate, Chris had the 90s and I had the 80s. So I guess Chris, this round goes to you.
Oh, yay.
I think I've won one round so far, so I think we're tied. I think we've done a couple different rounds of asking folks, and I think we're tied right now.
Hard though, because you split. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Really hard. Yeah.
To try to remove myself from the experience of going to the theater and buying my own ticket, and that's E.T. is a great movie, and I saw it in the theater. But I wasn't waiting for it to release and buying my own ticket and trying to impress a girl. You know what I mean? Like it was, or go with my friends. It was like I was a kid and I got dragged there by my grandma or something. Those movies are so good in the 80s, but like the participation and the anticipation part of it that came with the movies in the 90s for me. Yeah. That really is what put it over the edge. So I'm sorry that we made you lose, but we're proud that we made you win.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm still happy with the 80s stuff, so it's cool.
Hey, good choice. Yeah,
it's a hard one.
It's a hard.
It is. Yeah, I mean, because there were so many good movies that came out in the 90s. We've talked about this before, how hard it is to pick between the two. So, Yeah, well, Mark and Erica, thank you so much for coming on with us and sharing your time and your thoughts and talking about the Shuttlepod show and the live event. We are super excited to come down there and hang out with you guys and see everybody and be a part of the event. It's going to be an awesome time. And for those of you listening, if that's something that interests you, be sure, where can folks go to get passes for the event if they do want to attend?
Look at our socials. We're at Shuttlepod Show on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We've got links there. And we just launched a website, treksandtrekkers.com. Treks, Treks, and Trekkers, Trekkers. You can get it there. We've started an event create page where you can buy passes at different levels. It's
treksandtrekkers.com.
treksandtrekkers.com.
There you go.
Yeah. It just launched the other day, so it's updating every day. We're adding new things to it, so there's a chance over the next couple of days that it will be down for a couple of hours, just because it's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
But if you go to our socials, you go to our website, shuttlepodshow.com.
Link in the bio, you can find it there.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been awesome. I don't know about you, man. I cannot wait. Is it February 10th yet? Because I can't wait to get down there.
We're excited for you guys to get here.
It'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Podcast that we've been on that we'll be seeing, right?
That we'll be seeing.
Is
Yeah.
there another one coming, or maybe?
We've been inviting a bunch of them. We're hoping for a bunch of them to come. Some of them are participating from afar.
Yeah. Well, some are very far, right?
We're excited to have you. Thank you for having us on, and we look forward to seeing you in February 10th.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
This was really fun.
It was great. Yep. Thank you so much for being here. And Chris, it's going to be great to see you in person. All these times of us chatting and recording these episodes, it's going to be awesome to of course connect with you in person and have an opportunity to do some recordings together in person.
Absolutely. Yeah. We never get to do that, so it's going to be incredible.
It is.
Oh God, you guys are gonna cry.
Yeah, we probably will.
No, Mark, I have allergies. That's lots and lots and lots of allergies is all it is.
See, Star Trek brings us all together.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
I'll
it
bring
really
the
is.
tissues. I got a big box of them in the.
Just get the ones with lotion so our nose doesn't get all chapped and everything like that.
Yeah.
Aloe. I only use aloe tissues.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
For the way the design on them, so yeah, I gotta step it up.
Oh, you like the box?
Yeah, that's why I buy them in bulk.
Yeah.
There you go. You heard it here first. She buys the tissues in bulk. So thank you so much for being on. And we, of course, thank you all around the globe for listening to the Random Red Shirt podcast. You can, of course, find us on all the social media platforms. And be sure to go on to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and go find the Shuttlepod show and watch it. They're amazing interviews and episodes, and they just bring so much great stuff to the Star Trek community. And keep watching, because we can't wait to see what you guys have coming next. Can't wait for tomorrow to watch the episode with Tim Russ too.
Oh yeah, thank you. If you come, we're doing a live chat, so 10 o'clock if you want to come and chat with us.
Yeah, I'll probably jump on that for sure.
Yeah, you guys were there last week.
Yep, for sure. So, yep. Well, thanks again, everybody, for listening. We do appreciate it. Take care, and we'll catch you right here on the Random Red Shirt podcast. Take care, everybody.
Bye.